So you get how young people are generally dissatisfied with life and the world as it is today. For the most part, I mean, we're happy about some things like enjoyment and entertainment, but lots of other things like social, political,
It's not working.
we have other ideas. So there's been lots of like movements, things happening here and there, even on Twitter, for us who can do a lot
Engage
of
on there.
Yes. And at the end of the day, like when you think about it, what most of us are doing for the different things that we want to see change is really activism by definition. But of course, like many other words like feminist and whatnot, if you are called like an activist, people are less inclined to accept the label of activist or activism, when really what they're doing, if they're dissatisfied about something and they want it to change, what they're really doing is exactly that. At the end of it, like I want to know why we feel this way about activism, but then at the, like isn't this important, and how can we do it, or how can we have young people more intentional about how we seek change and even embrace like activism, because it's just another way you get to seek change.
How do you understand activism?
You know, different actions or sets of actions that we apply or that we get into, and it's got to be vigorous, like campaigning literally for change, social or political. But at the end of the day, like I
Can I be a solo activist without anyone
sure
behind me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Like as in Yvonne does not like guys wearing color yellow. And that's me being an activist.
And you go out, you first write like letters to the New Vision, to Monitor, then after that you write on blogs, you then write placards and you go to the parliament.
Where does communal benefit come in activism?
If an issue of change benefits the community or more than yourself, and you believe that you need people along, your cause, then by all means, like, drag the community along. If they refuse, I don't think that should stop activism, or that should stop you seeking change just because you don't have this many people behind you.
Yeah, I think when Yvonne talked about how then do you involve the community, can I be a solo activist, I started to think about the very many forms of activism and how a lot of people have been policed how they do their thing. Yeah. I was amazed early this year about the Women's March and about the feedback that a lot of feminists got online before. All you do is make noise on Twitter. So and I saw a tweet right after that from another feminist sister saying, tweeting is activism.
It's a form of
me waking up every morning and having a hashtag asking that the government puts medicine in Chiboga hospitals is me demanding for change. Me waking up every morning and writing blogs and writing think pieces and papers is activism. And I think from where Yvonne was stemming from, but correct me if I'm wrong, was because the word activism, just like some of other words like feminism, have been misunderstood. So when you speak of activism, people think about going on the street with placards, businesses are closing, complaining, quarreling.
Crying.
And I think a lot of people are uncomfortable with that way of doing things. But also maybe I will ask, and you agreed, so I think you're uncomfortable with that way of doing things. How many times have people begged, dialogued, and got feedback? Okay,
first I wanted to say that you asked why people are uncomfortable. Or how we
activism.
I for one until I went down and read what an activist is, or what activism actually is, I am severely uncomfortable with being labeled as such because of what I see, because of the people who call themselves activists. Because especially the feminists, because it is quarrel after quarrel, slander after slander, throwing knives, throwing daggers. And the thing is, how do you get
these daggers?
That's my perception. So because you are on the other side, I have to tell you what I read on this other side if I am your audience. And the thing is, so how do you get buy-ins? It's actually until someone explained to me what the feminists are complaining about. Okay, the ones who are not too radical and who haven't lost it. Yes, until they explain to me what this.
Lost it.
Yes, and the ones who haven't lost it, until they explain to me what their cause
Yvonne
is.
might have me taking my earrings
Take
off.
them off. until they explain to me what they're actually fighting for. I was like, oh wow, I also want the same thing, but their noise is just too much. It blinds me from hearing that. No, you asked. I mean, she asked. So we have to agree that activism in Uganda, especially it as a word, is quite new. Especially when
The word is new,
Yes.
not the practice of
Yes,
it.
not the practice, but then it coming to the forefront and it coming to our consciousness that, you know what, we are activists. Whereas in countries like in America, those guys had issues, and so their activism goes way back, them being conscious that we're actually going out to do these things. Now for Uganda, so we'll have us understanding activism through the guys who have fronted it. We'll have especially the feminists right now, LGBTI, people power right now. So those are the things which are introducing and shaping our minds and how we understand this word activism. Now those are the ways we know, us as the public, or me as a part of the audience. Those are the ways that, you know what, feminists, they're going to quarrel on Twitter. You know, they don't quarrel on Facebook.
You mean,
Wait, I am audience.
No, first of all, why are we saying quarrel? Educating people, disagreeing with people.
Beth and Joanne, you guys both are you're
That's
team
quarrel?
what? You're team quarreling. Now the
You mean
what?
team education?
How do you educate with quarrels? You do it with blows. Abusing, men are trash, what? As in, there's nothing subtle and there's nothing calculated about it.
I guess all these years.
All right, go on with the violence, and I'll be proved wrong when you actually get what you're fighting for. But I'm just telling you what us as the audience have gotten, especially the Ugandan audience in the now, have started to understand what activism is. We have learned from the feminists that we go on Twitter and we quarrel and abuse people and pick fights. From the LGBTI, still goes through that. They go on the streets, they have the pride marches. Theirs actually is more calculated, and hence I think we'll have more. Anyway, and then you have people power, which touches
Yvonne,
all of us.
let me first.
So
let me interrupt you
those
and
are the
just
ways
remind
we know.
you. Let me remind you that the
activism
point
takes
of
place.
activism is change.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's the end goal. It's change. So now you agreeing, after recognizing all these are forms of activism, if someone wants, they write papers, whatever, letters to the editor in the paper, whether people read them or not, they've done their part. Others will write blogs, then some people will read them. Others will come out and educate people who are saying stupid things on the internet, that's their way. You could choose to go and march. You could choose to do a sit-down strike, a hunger strike. I don't know how that really works.
You can also boycott places.
Yeah, you can boycott places. So that's all forms of activism. So I feel that where we shouldn't lose it is in the how. Oh, this is the one. This is the form that's wrong. I don't think there's any one form of activism that's absolute. If you go this way, you will get the change you deserve and that you seek. And no.
I've been silent the whole time because I'm trying to keep extremely calm.
You are just listening to me.
And I'm just listening and taking in all this, and
you don't want to quarrel.
Do you want tissue?
no, I don't want to fight, but let me just explain this. I think what we agreed on in the beginning is that there are different forms of activism.
Yeah.
Then why is it that when the different groups go ahead to demand for certain things in a way that they have been taught to demand for them, they are policed? How after the women murders early this year, was it last year?
Last year.
Women for UG got on the streets, white t-shirts and black pants, National Theatre, to go and demand that the government responds. Yeah,
and then
or deliberately and actively, really,
have
explain why there are all these 42 women that have been killed, but the government is telling us it's Illuminati. They are sex workers. They work at night, so their boyfriends, they have quarrels with their boyfriends. Generally, trying to domesticate issues that are affecting women, and many of them are ending up dead. When the women went on the street, there's a big backlash. When you go on the street, what do you expect? So a lot of these women, who are mostly feminists, went to Twitter, went to Facebook, got hashtags, we are demanding for ABC, we are demanding for ABC. And the trend of things that have been happening in Uganda, even people power, every movement that has happened for LGBTI people, when they shut down Pride in 2015 and 2016, and everything that has been happening, I find that there is one uniform thing that we do, or the government does most of the time, is we are so concerned with policing how the oppressed responds to how the oppressor is oppressing them. Why aren't we concerned about how the government does not put medicine in? When has the government ever respected and called you in a dialogue? So this month, Chivoga won't have the ARVs because we don't have money, or because we need to give our MPs an allowance. So I find it very disturbing that you're policed about how you demand for what you demand. And looking at the political situation in Uganda right now, it has become very difficult. I remember when Bobi Wine, began to become very, common to many Ugandans and very popular. I remember there was a time they were exchanging letters with His Excellency, President Museveni. And I remember seeing a tweet from a very brilliant woman asking, at the end of the day, what are those letters changing? So that person, and I had a conversation with them after, and they said, we're going to continue writing these beautiful think pieces. We're going to continue to write blogs. We're going to continue seeing Museveni blogging, and Bobi Wine responding, and Besigye going on radio and, doing all these things. What about Omuntu wa Wansi? How does that now bring change? So certain people go on the street and demand that you do ABC. Certain people demand that there is a certain political situation that makes the government more concerned about them keeping in power. So I'm very uncomfortable about the fact that we are always, and it's the trend, always more concerned with policing how the oppressed is responding.
But
when LGBTI people have been
policing? What do you mean by policing?
You see, for example, what you've been doing, I believe it's policing. You see, like when Stella Nyanzi, for example, came out and said these things, these buttocks, blah, blah, blah. Many people came around and said, but why wouldn't she? She's a writer. Why didn't she write to the president? But she's an activist. They would have gone to the street.
Somebody or their way
you get,
of doing life.
Why are you demanding that I use a certain
is
way to demand for what I want?
Is you suggesting that they should be doing this otherwise?
What I wanted to say is that at the core of activism is the fact that, for me, in my understanding, is the fact that you want to be heard, and to cause change you need, because it especially thrives in democracy, in democratic environment. Yes, according to me. So in order for you to cause change, numbers are very important, right?
No.
Wouldn't you say?
Well, numbers in what sense?
Numbers in
big or small?
Big in the sense, listen, big in the sense that if you have a huge number of oppressors, the oppressed, riding on your cause, then that is going to affect the numbers of anyone who wants to be voted into power. Okay. Even if it's like just about a restaurant. For me, I believe that every business or everything really relies on numbers, the attraction of numbers, because the more people you have,
sometimes
the more business
the numbers
you have.
are money.
Yes, it will translate.
Not numbers of people.
But where does the money come from? People, really. So
just
if you have
4 people who can give me the money, 100 people.
Very good. So at the core for me is the numbers. So my question would be to any activist is that what strategy do you have to get the numbers? Bobi Wine is excellent. A musician, yes.
In your opinion,
yes.
Anyway,
a musician.
Have you identified as an activist at any point in your life?
I do.
I do. Have you? For anything?
For anything.
Not the most common causes, no, for anything. Like you want to see change in schools, education,
you want people
or whatever.
healthier.
Have you identified as an activist?
Exercise
a bit. Yes, a bit.
You can't be a bit. Anyway, but it's
I
okay.
understand that it has to be communal and
communal.
But
no,
if it's as a solo,
so you wait for people to feel your pain before you can acknowledge it as pain.
To get the cause as in a unified cause. For
anyway, I do identify as an activist for so many things, and whether I'm doing it right yet or not, or have converted enough people to cause enough change, not yet. But I would really like to hear from someone who like in the thick of things and does identify as an activist for particular causes, and why they do what they do, and why that's important for other people, like especially young people who are uncomfortable about certain things, to be conscious about actually doing activism towards whatever change they want to see.
I'm interested in hearing this person speak about the different methods they've employed, and whether honestly at the end of the day there's actual change, because when you're an activist, I believe at the end of the day what you would like to see is a certain change, however slight, or has there been progress, and then the methods that they're using, have they gotten any problems with them at the end? Because with change to happen, there's going to be pain, there's going to be death, there's going to be blood, there's going to be two groups fighting. And
Blood.
so I'd like for this person to just, also throw some light on that. We are here at Olive's Restaurant and Bar in Naguru, opposite the surgery, which is our new home. Come through, visit this beautiful place for great pizza and really nice whiskey. Yeah, so earlier we were having a conversation about activism and what it means to each one of us and what mechanisms work and which ones do not work. At least one of the things we agreed on was the fact that whatever form you're taking, whatever mechanism you're employing, at the end of the day, there should be some bit of progress, a bit of movement from place A to B. However mild it is or however small it is, there should be some bit of change. And we decided to invite Edna Ninsiima, yes, who identifies as a feminist. She doesn't want to blur anything, so she decided to be, so she allowed to come and talk to us about this and maybe help with the very many questions that we had in the first session. And one of the things I picked up from Nvannungi and Yvonne was the issue of numbers. Yeah, whether numbers are really important for any movement to thrive. Yeah, I for one think numbers are sometimes really important to have a backing of the people, because at the end of the day, if you're claiming to speak for a certain group of people, then they should be able to identify with you. But then also we know that the different mechanisms that are used for activism, and some of them may not necessarily pull the numbers that you think you may need for a movement. And maybe just, Edna, you could just help us. Are numbers something that you need to have at the end of the day for any movement to thrive, or if you're an activist that is advocating for anything? It could be health, environment, LGBT, women, whatever.
I think that numbers are definitely important. Although, having said that, I think that also you cannot just wait on until we get numbers. There's a reason why, for example, there's that Ugandan phrase that I don't know who brought it up because it's a little bit problematic, but we shall not wait for Karamoja to develop. It's so when you're asking your question, I'm thinking about it in that way. You cannot wait for everybody to get on board, especially if you're fighting systems which are benefiting the majority. There is not a person benefiting from anything that's going to say, let's relinquish our power so that women can have better humanity, or let's just get out of power so that young people can get more jobs. And nobody's going to do that. Nobody. So sometimes you've got to start with what you have. And I find that also numbers mostly come with just a lot of consultations, sit down meetings, the advocacy bit, which is as important as the radical, which I am a radical, that's what I choose. But I think that also the advocacy and speeches, and I do all those things, even sit on panels and speak,
round table,
is important. I however know that whereas it's important to have UN round table, for activism, sometimes you've got to flip the table, the Jesus way in the temple, when he found that, these traders were in his father's house. Flip the tables. You need both for me.
When you kept on talking about round tables and dialogues and consultations, one thing came to mind. With whatever mechanism you're using, there's going to be money spent. We really know that for a lot of movements, they are funded by people who have money, and we know that they come with a lot of roles and responsibilities, what you need to have in place. One of those things is you need to have organized systems, which from what you said earlier, sometimes you may not be able to wait because there are women dying, there are children dying, there are people living with HIV that are living very unhealthy and are soon dying. So you may not wait to get the numbers, or you may not have an organized systems. How do you then, maybe you could first tell us what mechanisms you use, then how do you finance that, or what experience have you had with not being in some sort of boxed, organized way? So how do you finance the kind of movements you're part of?
Well, for me, I'm not the wait around type, first I'll admit I'm not a very patient person, but also, like I said, you can't always wait around. So I've not been I've not had so much experience with this we are part of the organization, so we are waiting for funding so that this campaign begins. Most of my activism is in my life personal. It's on my on my social media, it's in my family, it's with my conversations with my friends, and I wouldn't say that it would be, because it's in my life, I wouldn't say that it's a thing that costs money that much, but I would say that it costs, it has an implication on say peace of mind and mental health, because it's a lot. I think that what people don't realize most of the time is that activism is a lot, just having to deal with. So whereas other people are thinking, oh, you're shouting, you're so strong, you're what? Yeah, but I don't want to be shouting, you know. But this is something that's important that has to be done. So if some days I'll write an article for the paper,
strong-worded blog.
Yeah, and then people will say, oh yeah, we hear you, and I'll bring the other side and make sure I trigger thought, or influence, or even provoke somebody to think, oh, why wasn't I thinking about this? Some days I'll write a well-articulated thread when I've sat down and collected my thoughts. Some days I will just come and manipulate, or like just all the techniques of the English language to shame the oppressor online. So I will shout, I will mock them, and all of those methods for me work for me. And I don't want to do that. I would rather really the world was a fair place. Yeah, but this is something that has to be done.
Okay.
All right, Edna, I'm interested to find out. Earlier on, we defined what, in our humble understanding, what activism is, but I'd want to know from you, since you are rather experienced, what is activism?
Well, I don't even want to look for a dictionary or big word. For me, activism is as simple as being a problem to the problem.
Yeah.
So, and that is what I am. And my friend Ophelia introduced me to this poem by Eugene that said something about
to be a menace
to my enemies. So and I really deeply relate to that, because then I see that enemies in this case is the oppressor. So somebody who is benefiting from a system, or like perpetuating, or is part of the people who are embezzling funds, for example, who is saying kill queer people, who is robbing women of opportunities. That person is the enemy in this case. So I am being a menace to the enemy, to the oppressor. That is what activism is for me.
All right. From your definition, I can already hear that your strategy is you have a set out strategy. Being on the side of where I'd say as the audience, because I had not identified with the word activism, because there's a way it has been propagated to me, so I'm like, maybe I do not want to associate with it that much. I want to find out, do you measure out your strategy in terms of its effectiveness, and how do you narrow down on that, I think this strategy is going to work, versus being emotional about this problem that you have or that you see and you want to tackle?
Yeah, I would say most of the strategy I do, for me, because I'm an artist, I'm a writer, which is an artist, I use my art to that is how I speak to people, and that is where I put, because I've sat down, I've collected my thought, I've thought about it, and I am aiming to provoke thought. So I know that I'm going to, for example, use this analogy. I've often said that there's a poem I wrote and said about something about Christians saying, these LGBTQ people are sinners, but you're the first to fornicate. So why aren't you also like calling yourself out? Or some days
haven't they?
I've told, I don't know, I have not seen that a lot. I see the other one though. Or sometimes I've told people who are like, radicals, feminists, you're too much, and I'm asking, there is a Besigye and a Muntu. When Besigye takes to the streets, or even Bobby, why don't you feel like, oh no, he's shouting, he's not gonna, maybe not you, but a lot of people who actually come in and say, yes, why arrest the man? And yet he's being loud, he's being obnoxious, he's being radical, So I think that it's often an issue of just not wanting to accept. So people are gonna find all these excuses, but still, back to your question, most of the times my strategy is in my art, in my writing. But I find even in my radicalness that there is effect, there is results. and they don't come as soon, so that might be frustrating. There's a little bit of patience to be exercised. But I found, for example, 2015, I started identifying as a feminist in 2015, online especially. And I see women, young women who were on the train of, we hate feminists. And today they are speaking their truth. They are saying, oh my God, I can't believe I was this. And I'm amazed. I'm just like, wow. I mean, for them, I'm just like, I'm happy for them, because it's not for me really, it's for yourself, because you would be really a fool to not be on your side. And sometimes it's just things like people coming to my DM and saying, you know, that tweet you wrote about this, it's one person, it could be one person in 2 months, it could be 2 people, and yet I feel like, wow, this is something that's working. Or even before, when people would say, oh, feminists, but you have a father, oh, we hate all of you, and now it's just like the TL. My friends like to say that we have cleaned the TL. Now there is always a conversation of, does that translate to real life, because that's also important. But I say that we can take that win. We can say we don't know whether people are actually better in their lives, but at least here online, which is still the same people anyway, I see the change. Or some days, I don't want to speak for the queer community, but I was reading comments from that bogus story about gay money for funding the People Power movement, and I read a couple of comments that people were saying, we don't care where that money came from. And I thought, this is a shift, because Uganda is an extremely homophobic country. For people to get to a point and say we do not care whether that was gay money, it may not be huge for like the queer community, because it's a small thing and people are dying and suffering and whatever. But for me, I kind of see a shift. I see a change happening, and I see that as also a result of just like a lot of people just being tied to that end of saying, now we don't care, and maybe, who knows, next time it may not be such a problem.
I wanted to ask about, because all the things you keep saying, I think we've mentioned the People Power movement, the LGBTI movement, the feminist movement, and everything seems to be political and human rights based. However, I think someone mentioned earlier that being a problem to any problem you might have. So say I'm against medicine. Can I be an activist? Say I'm against weight. Can I be an activist? Are there other forms?
There are definitely other forms of. First of all, I want to say our lives are political, so you can't separate the
personal is extremely political.
But I understand the question, and I say, of course, there are other. There is climate change. There are people who are rooting for that, and it's a great cause. There are people who are rooting for, ICT, Nvannungi there. And it's
education,
the likes of Benji. All these are causes. All of these people are activists. However, when you ask a question about medicine, I'm not quite sure that would be, but I don't know. I wouldn't know, because I think that activism has to involve, first of all, finding an injustice. For me, it means an injustice, unfairness, inequality, and then wanting to find a solution to that. And advocating for that. So I'm not quite sure medicine is an injustice.
No, but as long as you say finding an injustice, I feel like that is an answer already.
So it could be as easy as, I tell people, I used to take taxis a lot, and I didn't like the way that conductors speak to women, or even treat them like fuluma, like, and they would never say that to a man. Or in a taxi, or gwe chikazi gwe sikuwa decente, like it's over. And every time I would master the words, I don't even want to deal with it, but I'm just like, like I start a real fight. The ones you are saying that we start as radicals, I'm just like, don't talk to her like that, because that's a problem. You do not, why are you speaking to her like that? So that even in that way, I'm being an activist. It could be a child, somebody mistreating children, locking them up. or not feeding them, yeah, and you come up and say, no, this is not right. Yeah, you're still being an activist.
Okay, so we keep mentioning activism and wanting to change things, and a lot of activism usually has a particular group of people, let me say, taking the lead and taking charge and getting the strategies, having direction for where they want to go. But you know, at the end of the day, there's going to be what we call Omuntu Awansi these days. I don't like to use the word grassroots, but the community
Down there.
because I'm also down there. You see? Yeah, so first of all, does your form of activism, how does it include, is it inclusive to the people in the community, to the several women that you speak to? But also, if it is not, then what other forms do you think would be more inclusive to maybe the person now down there? Like we always call it, the people in the community, the people you're speaking out for, the woman in the taxi that you speak out for. How do we involve them to actually, because there are people who don't understand that that's a problem. They think because the conductor is angry, he must speak to me this way. But it's not okay that women get to be spoken to that way. So how do you, at the end of the day, get more inclusive? And with inclusiveness, it could be including just the community people, whatever movement it is, if it's climate change, if it's LGBTI people, if it's a women movement, if it's about the boy child, whatever. How do you involve the community?
I will say personally, I still find difficulty navigating that. First, how do I feel like I connect to the Omuntu Wawansi or people at the grassroots? I do it in my work, yeah. So I write, but that's also a passion and a calling and a purpose. Yeah, whereas I might earn from it, my work is communications, and I am very intentional about which work I do. Well, because of course I'm privileged enough, I also admit to choose the work. Yeah, but so the work that I choose in my communications is mostly with CSOs that do the work that
With the communities.
for the communities, social, economic, you know, like gender, all of those changes. So I choose to do that work so that in that way, if and that's how I get to interact with communities, whether they travel. I find that they travel like out of Kampala to all these other places and doing work there. And when I put my work there, then that's how I'm contributing or interacting with the grassroots people. But again, I asked this question as giving a talk somewhere, and I said it in my speech, and somebody challenged me, a friend challenged me and said, you know, what makes you think that these young people, I said it as a challenge, yeah, these, I mean not young people, these older people or grassroots people are not organizing or are not activists. And then it hit me because I think that these women, when I think about my late grandmother, for example, she had, all she read was the Runyankore Bible. Yeah, she didn't meet Audre Lorde on paper, didn't know what the word feminist is, and yet looking at her life now, I see that it was as feminist as it gets. Or look at all, just in your families, our parents who didn't go to school but said let our parents go to school.
Yeah,
that was something. Yeah, you know. So I think that whereas we think that it is true that the conversation is happening up here, the only thing we maybe need to do is for how to see how to bridge the conversation, their conversations and ours. It is not necessarily that they are not doing something or that change is not happening down there. There are women fighting for their daughters not to be, you know, married off to 50-year-old men down in Agago district. I know this for a fact. So I think that they are in their right activists and they are doing the work. They may not speak English, they may not, you know, sit on the set of Black No Sugar, but I think they are doing the work. So I think then that, and which I don't have an answer to yet, what we need to do is then how do we connect this, their work and ours. Yeah.
Oh, thank you for that, Edna. So at Black No Sugar, we insist if you're silent about your pain, they'll kill you. And so you enjoyed it.